Chris, we're not live.
No.
We're never live, but sometimes we are, and
yes.
One of the next times that we will be live will be coming up October 14th, King of Pro Wrestling 2024, Ryogoku Sumo Hall. Walker Stewart, Chris Charlton here. Time to break down a little bit of the action, Chris. And I know that everyone's talking about it, everyone's buzzing, especially now that it is confirmed following our event Destruction in Kobe 2024 just days ago. It is all about Tetsuya Naito and G1 Climax winner Zack Sabre Jr., the IWGP World Heavyweight Championship on the line.
Well, okay, like, you know, I mean, I'm not going to be impartial.
Really?
Cowards.
Well, shocked.
But, you know, I mean, here we had, I think you said it recently, like, it's the biggest shakeup that we've had in New Japan Pro Wrestling for many a year, you know, and I think, like, bucking tradition, as Zack Sabre Jr. has had, not taking his title shot at the Tokyo Dome, but instead, you know, saying I'm going to take it before the end of the year, that shows a lot of, some would say, well, Naito's a vulnerable champion, he's going to take his shot, you know, that's a smart, ruthless mentality. But it also, I think, it speaks to a lot of balls on the part of Zack Sabre Jr., right? A, to be the guy that breaks from tradition, but also, yes, Ryogoku is the site of his biggest triumph. It's also the site of where he's missed, you know, not an open goal, but he's missed the opportunities twice before. Twice New Japan Cup winner, twice faces Kazuchika Okada. Ryogoku, that spring, twice he loses in the end, you know. And I think, like, that's the mindset for Zack come October the 14th, is kind of overcoming, much the same way we almost had with Yoshihashi and David Finlay in September, overcoming kind of past traumas against a man in Tetsuya Naito where, you know, I mean, Zack knows how dangerous Naito is. Zack has lost successive matches against Tetsuya Naito. The record still stands in favor of the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. And there's almost a funny thing about the mentality of a competitor going into this situation, right? He beat Tetsuya Naito during the G1 Climax. Very often, that is actually to a wrestler's detriment. Right. Because they feel so overconfident, I know I can beat the champion. Overconfidence has beaten Zack countless times. You know, and that makes for, you know, I think a very difficult mountain to climb. And I think that's the logic that Zack Sabre Jr. has had all through this year. Sure. Make things as difficult for me as possible so that I can prove that if I take the World Heavyweight Championship, I'm able to lead not just himself, but Team DK and all of New Japan.
Well, sure, it's interesting, isn't it? The way we talk about overconfidence has been something that has cost Zack Sabre Jr. so many times in the past, and Zack's gone on record to talk about that, being like, hey, I'm not that kid anymore. I'm getting into my 30s now, and I'm developing, and I've become the man, and New Japan Pro Wrestling has watched me grow up and become the man that I am today. And you know, the reality stands, Chris, that, well, if Zack falls short of, you know, he said that if he fell short in G1 that his entire career was for nothing. How do you think that stands going into this IWGP World Heavyweight Championship match? You've delivered on the promise that you made for G1, but everyone wants G1 for a specific goal, not just to call yourself the best tournament wrestler in the world, but eventually to call yourself the best wrestler in the world as a champion, as IWGP Heavyweight World Heavyweight Champion nowadays. And, well, reality is, if Zack doesn't follow through on these promises that he's made, I mean, you're going to be feeling it. There are countrymen that will be let down. There are going to be worlds that are torn apart if Zack Sabre Jr. does not complete his destiny coming up at Ryogoku.
Hey, Walker, if there is one thing that unites the British people,
well,
it's
lost.
It's being let down by our sporting heroes. But, you know, I think, you know, Zack made that, his position very clear, that it wasn't just the G1, right? That it was also the World Heavyweight Championship, and that it was the Tokyo Dome. We just assumed the order would be G1, Tokyo Dome, World Heavyweight title.
I gotta ask you this. Like, do you think that it really ups the value of Wrestle Kingdom of Zack Sabre Jr. to walk into the Tokyo Dome as IWGP World Heavyweight Champion rather than walking in as the challenger?
Well, I mean, for sure. You know, I think we started this year with the acknowledgement of Zack Sabre Jr. as the best technical wrestler in the world, compliments of Bryan Danielson, right? I think, yo, he's world champion. He walks in, if he walks into the main event as champion in the Tokyo Dome, doubly especially so if he walks out. Now we're getting way into the weeds at that point. but then we can remove the technical qualifier, can we not?
Yes.
And we can just say that he's the best wrestler in the world, you know. That's obviously something that Zack Sabre Jr. wants. But you just can't look past Tetsuya Naito.
No.
And you know, I mean, Sabre's looked past Tetsuya Naito in the past, it's come back to bite him. And we keep talking about Naito being pressured into a corner, being at his most dangerous when he is pushed into a corner. And that's something you have to look out for.
Well, I mean, can we talk a little bit about how Tetsuya Naito back in Kobe absolutely changed the narrative around the conversation of the IWGP World Heavyweight title situation? The way that Shingo Takagi comes down to ringside, says, hey, I want next, potentially. Hiromu Takahashi is at ringside already. You know how long that he has wanted that one-on-one singles matchup. You thought that the Never Openweight Championship was going to be his way to it. Now Shingo Takagi Never Openweight Champion, and it feels like there's a little, I don't want to say malfunction at the junction, so to speak, but you know, Tetsuya Naito creating more controversy by saying, hey, when I win and retain the IWGP World Heavyweight title at Ryogoku, I'm going to lay down my next challenger.
It's a lot of politics, isn't it, professional?
Yeah.
And I think you and I can both recall and the chills that we had when Zack Sabre Jr. took that title, that trophy rather, and ran into the crowd with it, right? Or took Naito's belt and ran into the crowd with it in Osaka, right? And having the, you know, in amongst the congregation, so to speak, and Zack Sabre Jr. being at the head of that congregation, right? For Tetsuya Naito, where we talked about the people are there for Naito when they need him the most. I think Tetsuya Naito isn't very tranquilo right now, right?
No.
And he's perhaps a little bit panicked of, well, it's going to be tough for me against Saga. It's going to be even tougher for me if I've lost the people.
Right.
So, in my mind, that's why he did what he did in Kobe.
Well, and there was a period of time in Kobe, I'm sorry to cut you off, but there was a period of time in the Great-O-Khan match where he did lose those people.
Sure.
And for the first 2/3 of that matchup, Great-O-Khan completely on top of Naito in competition.
Yeah, exactly. So how can Naito get back the people? Well, he can dangle the carrot of, if I beat Zack Sabre Jr., then you're going to get potentially Naito versus Shingo, Naito versus Hiromu, two matches people badly want to see, potentially at the Tokyo Dome, or before then, right? So that is the master manipulator that Tetsuya Naito is, right? And I think that's going to be perhaps the match might be won and lost on October 14th within the first 30 seconds of the bell ring, and we get that wide shot and it zooms in on the ring, and Red Shoes is there. Being the arbiter of the crowd, right? Whoever's up, I think is going to be up at the end of the night.
Wow. Well, I mean, we have no clue what's going to happen until we get there. And keep in mind, October 14th, we'll be live on NJPW World English coverage for this event, King of Pro Wrestling 2024.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're going to be here for a whole hour. We talk about everything because you've got 7 title matches on the line. We're just going to run through a few of these. I mean, Hiroki Goto versus David Finlay. Goto kind of defending his partner Yoshihashi's honor against Finlay. Of course, had that, just the emotional, I said before, tear through a glass eye, really felt it with Goto beating Finlay in Korakuen Hall. And Finlay pushing those buttons again, right, in his backstage comments. Bring your kids to Ryogoku, and Goto saying, no, I don't want my kids to see that. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be powerful stuff, right?
It's going to be a very interesting matchup. You said it yourself, Hiroki Goto, in their only singles matchup, defeated David Finlay back in G1 34. Has more than earned this opportunity for the IWGP Global Heavyweight title. May be able to pull out another white belt victory here in New Japan Pro Wrestling.
Right. IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship, Doki and Sho. A guy that Doki said, hey, you don't deserve to be in IWGP circles. Arguably the worst junior heavyweight champion we have ever had, but 5-0 against Doki is Sho, and twice this year, over the title and during Best of the Super Junior. So I mean, you can certainly say there he's qualified.
Sure.
To have that shot.
Well, Doki has been on a run, though, of defeating men that he has never defeated before, from Hiromu Takahashi, El Desperado, Taiji Ishimori, now Yoshinobu Kanemaru back in Kobe. I think that there's all the potential in the world that Doki retains and keeps rolling forward as IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion.
And we'll get into it later on, but perhaps there might be another interesting contender coming out of that matchup, and we'll talk about it a little bit later on. Hiroshi Tanahashi, 25 years of Hiroshi Tanahashi. He's been wrestling a lot longer than you've been alive.
Yep, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, joked your parents still in elementary school when Hiroshi Tanahashi made his debut. But for many outliers, Shota Umino and Hontai, and then El Phantasmo completing that Hontai circle as well. I got a take on the House of Torture.
Well, you know, you and I had this conversation earlier on. Hiroshi Tanahashi, you're in your 25-year anniversary matchup. Who do you want to face? And for Tanahashi to put forward this match against House of Torture just speaks to the type of man that Hiroshi Tanahashi is. You know, people talk about, I mean, I remember all the conversation when Hiroshi Tanahashi first became president. Well, he could put himself in a world heavyweight title match if he wanted. And God forbid Hiroshi Tanahashi could have said, hey, let me challenge for a championship. Why the hell not?
I know some people in wrestling that would have done exactly.
I worked for a couple of promoters that same way, but not around here. Reality is, though, Hiroshi Tanahashi, it speaks to his true character, the man that he is, the forces of good versus the literal force of evil. Hiroshi Tanahashi, El Phantasmo Umino. I think it's going to be a very interesting encounter.
How about this one? World TV Championship 3-way. Jeff Cobb defending against both Yota Tsuji and Ren Narita. And the intriguing mix, we always talk about 3-ways, the champion as at their most vulnerable, right? Because you don't even have to get pinned to lose the match. But at the same time, champion's advantage, 15-minute time limit in that 3-way match.
Yeah, it's really interesting to think about. I mean, at a certain point, I know Jeff Cobb may not be thinking about it going into this match as the champion, but if it was any other man, you'd be thinking about survival. Hey, if I could just keep everyone away from each other, if I could pull someone off of another man for a 15-minute period, hey, look at this, I'm still World Television Champion.
Yeah, it's going to be a King of the Mountain deal. How about the IWGP Tag Team Championships? TMDK, Shane Haste, Mikey Nichols, up against Bad Luck Fale and Caveman Ugg. Now, I mean, I first saw Caveman Ugg wrestle about 5 years ago when Southern Showdown happened down in Melbourne. And, Ugg, a very, very impressive, formidable, athletic big man against, just a human refrigerator in Bad Luck Fale. And that's a tough ask. Ugg, albeit with the assistance of Bad Luck Fale's cronies, was able to beat Mikey Nichols one-on-one at Down Real Out Pals with Tanahashi down south a couple of weeks ago, and that's led up to this match.
I mean, hey, let's call it as it is. Caveman Ugg earned this opportunity. Bad Luck Fale, even if there was a little bit of chicanery and interference involved, it goes down in the record books as it does. I'm very interested to see this. I mean, I believe this is the Japanese debut for Caveman Ugg in New Japan Pro Wrestling. It's going to be very interesting to see exactly which side the audience might take on that.
All right. And also, how about this one? Two teams that have known each other, hated one another for a long time. The Intergalactic Jet Setters, Kevin Knight and Kushida. Now, Kevin Knight was able to score a win over the War Dogs back, you were there, Washington, D.C. at the end of August, and then there was some very, very physical answers from Drilla Maloney and Clark Connors in response. That's led to this match for the Junior Heavyweight.
Yeah, I think that, hey, why the hell not? IWGP Junior Heavyweight Tag Team title opportunity. You know, the War Dogs never have a problem putting their championships on the line, and they have also never had a problem defending those championships successfully throughout this entire reign that they've had. You and I have been saying it the entire time, Drilla Maloney, the most devastating finishing maneuver in professional wrestling, that Drilla Killa. Kevin Knight and Kushida are going to have to watch out.
Kushida knows how devastating that is.
Yes, he does.
Saw him die about just a year ago, and then the receipt for that was also in Ryogoku in spring, right? If you remember that massive smack and burst the eardrum of Drilla Maloney, so a lot of bad blood in this one. Now I wanted to pick out a couple of matches each to really go further in depth on, and for me, fourth match on the night, Ryohei Oiwa, really making the most of his minutes, so to speak, at Destruction in Kobe, and instantly calling out Shingo Takagi for the Never Openweight Championship.
Yeah, no, Ryohei Oiwa and Shingo Takagi is some people would call it a very early onset dream match, right? The style that Shingo Takagi wrestles, and then the style that Ryohei Oiwa has developed for himself during his time in Pro Wrestling Noah, locking up with guys like Kenoh Manabu Soya and Kaito Kiyomiya and the likes. I mean, it's going to be a very interesting clash between the two men. For your first singles match back to be for the Never Openweight Championship, I mean, I feel like that it says something about the way that New Japan Pro Wrestling also views Ryohei Oiwa as an athlete, as an investment, and now as the newest member of TMDK.
So we talk, there's the pressure of perception, right? And so it sort of puts things on a knife edge where you say, my first major match back outside of tag matches, my first singles match is going to be for a title, right? And there are going to be some wags online that are going to say, well, Iowa, if he loses, then he's already toast. Look at him, he's come back and he's squandered all of his momentum by losing to Shingo Takagi. Do you feel that's the case? Do you feel Ryohei Oiwa has to win? Has to become Never Openweight champion?
I think in a lot of ways, a loss to Shingo Takagi is not exactly a true loss, but that's the level that I perceive Shingo Takagi to be at. And as you said, perception is reality. So in my mind, that's where that sits. However, you know that Ryohei Oiwa is not going to feel that way whatsoever. I mean, the way that things are done in the TMDK style, it's kind of, hey, you need to win. There is a need to win situation all the time. We are all #1 in TMDK for a reason. Oiwa has something to prove, not just to New Japan Pro Wrestling, but also to showcase to Zack Sabre Jr. and the rest of TMDK Formidable, hey, you made the right choice.
All right, and well, the match you chose to talk about is kicking off. Can you believe this is the kickoff?
When I saw this card announced, I had to refresh the page a couple of times. I thought the New Japan site glitched more than it already does. We're talking about it. Hiromu Takahashi, Mystico in the opening match of the evening. Chris, give me your thoughts.
It's wild, isn't it? Hiromu called his shot, of course, because Mystico beat Hiromu
Arena Mexico,
right? In Mystico's anniversary. They'd had, I believe, one match before that was a double pin.
Yes.
Right? So it's a 1-0-1 situation. Hiromu wanting to, I guess, carve his own narrative.
Sure.
Perhaps, and stake a claim. Perhaps make a case to Tetsuya Naito as well.
Well, right. I think that there's something to be said about home turf advantage. We talked about it where we will see Sonata Zack Sabre Jr. at Royal Quest, and Sonata wants to take out Zack Sabre Jr. on his home turf the way Zack did to Sonata back in tournaments previous, and now we see a similar situation with Hiromu Takahashi and Mystico. I'm very intrigued to see, and let's just be honest here, Hiromu Takahashi Mystico is a match that's already happened, yes, in CMLL, but it's a dream match anywhere in the world, any organization, any stage, and for it to happen in the opening of Ryogoku Sumo Hall, it's really special. I think that there's going to be a magical energy in that building on that night.
Yeah, I mean, it speaks to just how stacked that card is when that is the first match on the card.
Right.
And also, I think sometimes matches like that, and especially, the talk around Lucha Libre circles, Mystico likes to make a lot of challenges, and sometimes that doesn't exactly pan out.
Right.
But he'll do it to pop a house or get his name in the headlines, and that's the icon that he is. So I think Hiromu making that statement backstage, we go, it'll be good if it happens. And then the next day, oh wow, it's actually happening. A, that was cool, and B, it makes me think to words that Doki had, Mystico had with Doki rather, after Fantastica Mania.
And I was just about to bring that up. Mystico, walks away with the victory alongside Doki at Fantastica Mania USA, and all of a sudden goes, hey, how about you and I for the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship? The question I want to pitch to you, would you see this matchup as maybe a de facto #1 contendership?
I mean, it could be. It wouldn't surprise me. It would say that even Doki didn't, blew it off, right? Even Doki was like, yeah, sure, it'd be good, but yeah, I mean, like, that could potentially be, I think that's what makes King of Pro Wrestling all the way around so exciting,
right?
Is that, yes, you have a 9-match card where everything has stakes, everything's exciting, 7 titles on the line, you have the great celebration with Tanahashi, you have that Mystico and Hiromu, even if it is just an exhibition, what a hell of an exhibition. But it also, King of Pro Wrestling, I didn't say KOPW, that's the belt, good grief. But, it's also where we typically set our table, or start to set the table, for the Tokyo Dome. And everybody's going to be talking about January 4th, Wrestle Kingdom, January 5th, Wrestle Dynasty, and where those pieces come together. I think that's what we're going to start to see October the 14th. That's why it is so exciting. And of course, you guys can watch it around the world, wherever you are, be there, as they say, NJPW World live English coverage. And tickets are available worldwide as well. If you're planning a trip, if you're coming into Tokyo just for a few days, you want to catch New Japan Pro Wrestling, the best of Japanese pro wrestling, the best pro wrestling in the world, let's face it, in one of the most famous venues that, I mean, I know it's a cliche, no bad seat in the house, there's no bad seat in the Yokoku Sumo Hall. It's an electric atmosphere, and we hope you come and join us.
Yeah, there's never been more unpredictability at this stage, at this season in New Japan Pro Wrestling in the longest time, and now we have that unpredictability. You want to be a part of the action, and if you cannot be here live in person, NJPW World is where you want to find it. Live English coverage, Chris Charlton, Walker Stewart, New Japan Pro Wrestling.